we get into this report, I just wanted to clarify when you need to start charging sales tax like GST or HST, because there's always a lot of questions around that. For GST or HST, it's when you have 4 consecutive quarters that total up to at least $30,000 in revenue, and that's gross revenue before any deductions or write-offs. These quarters do not all need to be in the same fiscal year, they just need to be one after another. And it could be less than 4 quarters. Let's say that your sales go nuts and you hit $30,000 in revenue within 90 days. Congratulations. And now you have 29 days from the end of the month that put you over that $30,000 threshold to register for your GST or HST number and to start charging sales tax to your customers. You do not need to remit back taxes on the $30,000 that got you to the threshold, just on any amount above and beyond that. If you have not reached that level of revenue yet, then I wouldn't recommend registering for your sales tax number just yet. Leave it until you do hit the threshold. Once registered, you do need to submit the paperwork annually, whether you hit that $30,000 threshold or not. So you might as well save yourself the work and just wait until you actually get there. Now, if you live in a province that does have PST and you sell a qualifying product, you'll need to check what your provincial rules are around when you need to start charging sales tax, because it varies. Some provinces do have a minimum threshold that you need to meet before you need to start charging PST, and others do not. Before we take a look at the sales tax report itself, I just wanted to give folks a quick reminder that you set your sales tax rates up here at the top of the settings and rules sheet. And remember, you need to set for GST and HST both what you collect from your customers as well as what you pay on your expenses. For PST, there's just the one rate. Now, I have some great news when it comes to the actual sales tax report sheet. You do not actually need to do a single thing on this sheet. This is just a report that pulls information from your monthly overviews. And it includes all of the numbers that you will need to submit your sales tax filing through the government website. So over here, we have what your total sales were for each month. You have what you collected in GST or HST from your customers, what you had paid as the business on your business operating expenses. And then if here in this column, it shows what the difference was between those. If the amount in the difference column is highlighted in the red/terracotta color, that means that you have collected more in GST from your customers than you have in available credit on expenses that you have paid. So generally that means that you will have to remit sales tax back to the government. You will have a payment owing. However, if it is green, then that means that you paid more in GST or HST on your business expenses than what was collected from your customers on your sales. So in that case, you may be eligible for a refund. When you put your information into the online filing portal, it will tell you at the end of the process whether or not you need to make a payment or if money will be coming back to you. And then just for your own information, we have a column here that shows what you have made in terms of GST or HST remittance payments throughout the year. So remember though that this won't match up to this year because payments are delayed. So let's say that you're paying quarterly. This January payment would have been for October through December of the previous year. So it's not going to be a one-to-one match, right? We wouldn't see the number that's outstanding here in this column. If you're paying monthly, then it would be delayed by a month. And then depending on how much your sales are, you may only need to pay annually. So then you would just see one payment here in this column. Now, if you're in a province that does have PST and you need to be collecting it, that information is over here on the right. This will be a separate filing than your GST and HST filing. And you might notice that there's no difference column over here. And that is because you don't get credits for PST paid on business expenses. It's just considered a normal cost of doing business. However, you do get to count PST paid on any qualifying business expenses towards your total write-off amount. And further good news is that the system automatically tracks most of the numbers required for this report. So it tracks your total sales automatically. That just happens on its own. Same with your GST or HST collected, what you were paying on various expenses. Same for PST collected and paid. This all happens automatically. The only two numbers that you will need to enter manually on your monthly overview sheets to make sure that they get tracked is your actual remittance payments. And then there's a couple of other things that you may or may not want to track related to your sales taxes, such as putting aside money for paying it later. Let's take a look at that on the monthly overview sheet. So all of those will be found under the withdrawals section of the monthly overview sheet. We can see here, this is the January sheet, and we have tracked a GST or HST payment made right here on this line. So under the drop-down menu for various expense categories, all of the tax-related ones are found down here in this section where the tags are highlighted in red. And the relevant ones here will be if you had moved money into a savings account to hold it to pay your GST or HST payments later, you can tag that as GST and HST savings. The actual payment that goes to the government, the actual remittance, that will get tracked as GST or HST payment. And then same for PST. If you move it into a savings account, it can be the same account that you use for your GST and HST savings and actually even your income tax savings. That's what I do. Anything that is a tax saving amount, I just have one account for that. I just move them all into there. But if you use that secondary account to hold your tax money, which I do recommend, it just makes things a little clearer and easier. Once the money is in that account, aside from using it to pay the government, you can't use it for anything else. Just pretend it doesn't exist. But if you're using that system, then you just want to make sure that you tag those outgoing transfers. Now you might be wondering, can I set up rules for these? Yes, you can. So over on the settings and rules sheet again, let's go back over there. We'll go down to the expenses and withdrawal rules down here on the right hand side. And you can see right now we have one rule already set up, where if it says GST in the description, that means that it was a remittance or a payment. And you have all the same options on this drop down. You can set up a rule for what was GST or HST savings, what was a payment, and the same for PST as well. Now, if you're moving all of your tax savings in terms of your income tax savings, your sales tax savings, all of that's going into the same account, that might be a little bit tough to set up a rule for, but this is also something that you'll only be doing at most twice a month probably. So let's see how this works. So let's take a look at the June overview sheet. Up here in our reporting section, we can see that we collected $672.84 from our customers. So let's say that I want to move that amount into a savings account where I'm holding my tax payments until I need to make them. So I would go down to the withdrawals section and let me just add a new line. Let's say move to holding account. Oops, 284. And then I will tag that as GST or HST savings. And this doesn't get reported anywhere. This isn't going to show up on your P&L statement. It doesn't show up on the sales tax report. This is just purely so that if the CRA was looking at your bank statement, you know, you're being audited and they're like, can you explain this transfer out for $672.84? You can look at your log here and be like, oh yeah, I moved that into the tax savings account to pay you guys later on. So let's say that now it's July and you pay your sales tax quarterly and you need to do your Q2 filing. So on your GST, HST, PST overview sheet, you would add up the total of sales from April, May, and June and submit that as your total sales for the quarter. You need to do the same thing for the GST or HST collected from your customers. You need to total up these three numbers, same for what you had paid on your business expenses. And then the system would let you know what your payment was, or if you didn't need to make a payment and you were in fact getting a refund. So let's say you go through all that and then the online filing system tells you that you have an outstanding payment of $1,600 that you need to make. Yes, it's a perfectly round number. It's a miracle. So we're in July, and let's say you want to record that payment that you made to the government. Again, you'll go down to your withdrawals section. Say you made it on the first of the month. And it was $1,600. Now, I had a rule set up that says if it has GST in the description, then it should automatically get tagged as a GST or HST payment. So that happened automatically. You might manually enter it, depends on how you have things set up. And that's it. Now when I go to look at my sales tax report, I'll now see that number here under the amounts that I have remitted so far this year. And that's it. I included the sales tax report sheet in the system to make filings easier, so hopefully it actually does that. But as always, if you have any questions at all, just let me know.